In our previous session, in session 2, we've discussed about set saving goals. And having discussed the saving goals has helped you all recognize and realize that to have a personal finance, you should have a tool called savings plan. And that tool will help you manage your finance, give direction to how best can you save up to meet your saving goals in order to keep your personal finance separate from your business finance. Now, there is also another important tool that we need to discuss in order to help you develop a good personal finance. Now, and that is called budgeting. So in this session, we will not look at the technical budgeting itself. I'm pretty sure that most of you women are business owners and you would have a sense and a feel of developing your own business finance. You would know the components of how to develop a budget, okay? But in this session, we will be very, very much more basic. Our aim is to drive behavior change to you. So that means in this session, we will look at personal household budgeting. So that means you will look at very simple, basic budgeting step to manage your own finance. Now, by the end of this session, you will be able to, 1, define what budget is, 2, identify different categories that makes up a personal household budget, and finally, state the reason why budget is useful. Okay? So the learning outcome of this session is you should be able to develop and own a personal budget for yourself. So having said that, what is a budget? You may have your own definition about what is a budget, but in a very simple term, a budget is basically a summary of your estimated income and how best can you spend that money over a defined period of time. Now the key word here is estimated income. You are required to spend in a what? Defined period of time. So that's another key word. So basically a budget is just a summary snapshot of your money, outlining it and how best can you manage that fund. So that means you all ladies have experience in developing a personal household budget. That means if you are very good at keeping receipt, then it forms the basis of being a good person that knows how to develop a simple household budget. Now, if you know how best to write down like a shopping list, that is also seen as a form of a personal household budget. Now, in this session, we will look at the component of how best can you transfer all this information into a simple household budget. Now, in a real budget itself, the components might slightly differ. However, the logic is still the same. So for a personal household budget, we would love you to have a budget that comprises of a title, and that title should also state the reporting period as to what time this budget is to be captured. You should also state the income, from which income sources are you getting your money from. You should also list your different expenses and then your savings. Now we're encouraging a savings culture here. Okay, so that means your savings should link to your savings plan that we've discussed earlier on. So whatever you are budgeting on your budget under savings should also capture what you've already outlined in your savings plan. And most importantly, in a personal household budget, you should at all times have ending cash. Okay? Why we decided not to say profit is because we're trying to tell you that you need to seriously think that in individual life, we are not there to create profit. However, in business term, we do. Individual life, you should always have ending cash to sustain you for the next maybe 2 weeks if you're getting a fortnightly salary. So without the ending cash, that's why most people go and borrow on money lenders. So in simplified version, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 parts to develop a simple household budget. The first one is always have a title, list down your income sources, list down your expenses. You have to have your savings goals listed as well and captured in your budget plan, and have a ending cash. Okay, so let us look into detail the diagram now of how the budget should look like. So that means that you also have the resource book with you. So if you could kindly flip to the page that has a simple household budget format in it. Okay. Now in your resource book, you will see that it has more detail about Jenny's family budget for 12 months period. Now on the whiteboard, I just in brief, but I'm pretty sure that you have read through the notes and you would understand in detail the examples that is stated in the resource book. But out here, I'm just here to pinpoint what are the key steps that you need to know, as well as what are the different categories that comprises of a personal household budget. Now, as stated earlier on, your budget should have title, income, expense, savings, and ending cash. And in your resource book, when you looked at it, Jenny has a couple of income sources. Okay, one is from farm, business, wages, remittance, rental, interest on savings, and gifts. Now, interest on savings basically is the money that she put in one of the financial institutions that generate interest on her own money again. Okay, and then when you look at the expenses, she has a lot of expenses. However, she has an ending cash of 300 kina. Now, where does the savings come from? The 305 kina, it comes from what? As savings goal. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is, in your budget, always accommodate your savings plan or your savings goal in it as well. So the proper step to develop your budget, remember the first thing is you have to review your financial goals or your saving goals. How can you review it? It is from your savings plan. You already have the savings plan tool there. You basically go back and review those goals, making sure that you understand how much you are required to save for in that particular period, because that period is very important for you to transfer it into your budget. Now, once you understand that, the next thing is you have to estimate the amount of income by source. So that means you should know the total of money you're making or your salary. Okay? Once this is done, the next step is you have to decide how much you're willing to save up for. Decide how much you're willing to save up. Again, it should come from your savings plan. So the deciding, since you already have that savings plan, it makes it easier for you to just transfer the figure across. Then you can list your expenses. But one of the important things you need to also bear in mind is make sure at all times your expense must always be less than your income. Okay? Why? Because it's gonna instill in you discipline and caution. Always remember that. Your expenses at all times, it has to be less than your income. So that means if you are earning 2,000 kina, you should be spending 1,099 kina and less, no more than that. If it's more than that, then when you track it and you see that you spend 2,200, where does this 2,000 come from? You already break that step. Automatically it comes from money lender. Okay? So try your best to make sure at all times, remember that. And finally, is always review and adjust when needed. So once you develop your personal household budget, go back and check. Check your expenses. Did you list a lot of optional expenditures? If you do, then you might as well review and adjust and change. Okay. If you list a lot of money on, maybe big amount of money on betel nut, then maybe you need to adjust it. If you spend more money on customary obligation, then you need to adjust it. So all in all, in developing a simple household budget, always remember that you should at all times put a title. Know that you should list down your sources of income, your expenses, your savings, and your ending cash. Now at most of the time, remember that savings goal has to be part of your budgeting plan as well. Now that leads me to the point by saying, why do you think a budget is useful? Having discussed this simple household budget, why do you think that this simple household budget is useful? There could be many reasons. However, I have a few points here that I need to summarize with you all and close our session. The first one is, when you have a personal household budget, it allows you to assign your income to your respective expenses. Okay? Now, the other one is, it encourages caution. Now, when you have that plan in place, that budget plan, it's written out nicely. Maybe in your diary, in a notebook. Every time you should go back and reflect on it. Sure, it should instill in you caution. Beware. Spend within that limit. Okay? It should also encourage you to save. Now, having a budget should encourage you to save, because you will be seeing how much money you are allocating for savings alone. And it's captured in your savings plan as well as in your budget as well. Okay? The next is, when having a budget, it allows you to take financial full control over your funds and not your funds taking control over you. Okay? So once you have a budget, it's like a guide for yourself. It's like a roadmap. It outlines the direction in which you need to take regarding your funds, your respective funds. And also it's going to show you from what different sources of income are you coming from. Is it only from one source? And you have lots of expenses. Then you should be seriously thinking about how to increase your different sources of income. So to summarize this session, we are basically trying to tell you that since you already have a savings plan, you should also have a budgeting plan. And that plan should help you also achieve your saving goals. And it should help you manage your personal finance really, really well and instill in you discipline. So again, thank you everyone. And we'll move on to our next session.